Hello and welcome to another edition of the Eternal Journey. I'm the Resolves, and this is a new addition to the new player series where we're going to be taking a look at the Skycrag list, how you're going to be able to play that as a new player, how you're going to be able to upgrade that in the next couple of weeks, and then it's like the final endpoint for the deck. And we're going to talk about how we're going to get there and a little bit about the deck. So this is a series aimed at newer players where they may be tired of like the conventional wisdom of, oh, you new player, just play Rakano. I'd like to give them a few more options so they can take a look at different deck styles and see what they prefer to sort of play amongst them. And of course, Eternal's generally quite generous, so you should be able to build a few of the different new player decks that I've shown here, and then you can decide which playstyles for you if you're not really sure, if you've not played many card games before. So let's take a look at Skycrag. Skycrag's probably the most budget-friendly beatdown deck. I think the Stone Sky deck is slowly creeping out of being easy to craft now, as it does need 8 legendaries last time I checked, as well as a campaign card. So let's start off with the Skycrag deck, as this is a real nice one, and it's going to get you pretty far up the ladder if that's what you want to do. First off, I do need to tell you about this card, and this is Thunderbird. So Thunderbird isn't from a set per se, but it isn't a promo, so I'll show you how to craft that. Okay, so from the home screen, if we go into cards, we go to my collection, and we click craft in here, and then in this search bar we should be able to just type whatever we want. So if we type Thunderbird, this should pop up, and then you should be able to craft this for 100. So the only reason I'm telling you this is because this was from set 0, which is like a base set of cards that just sort of came included with the game. I'm not sure whether you will get this when you start playing now. But as you can see the difference here, so if I select a different card, I'll select like Tundra Explorer, you can see here where it can be found. So it's just to let you know that you can craft these cards. But if you import the deck list from the description, then it should be able to give you the option just to create everything that you've not got from there. Okay, so back onto the deck. Okay, so here we are with the beginner Skycrag deck, and I think this is pretty powerful as a beatdown deck because we do have a lot of raw power in it. This version does require a campaign card, and that is the Cinder Yeti, and this is from the Tale of Horus Traver. And this is really good in this deck because it gives you a little bit of card advantage at times because you can warp this off the deck, and it should be able to help you to gain for a bunch of damage because you can generally just exhaust whatever your opponent's biggest unit is and just get in there for a bunch of damage. If of course you can't craft this, then there are a couple of different options you could slot into your deck. Okay, first up we've got the Clan Hero, which has Spark. So what Spark is if this turn your opponent has taken damage, then you get to do an effect, and the effect of this is that you get to play a +2 power Iron Sword. So the Clan Hero gets to be a 5/3 for free, which is a really good rate. So it's worth noting that the Spark only happens once, it's like an ultimate ability, but I think that the Clan Hero is a fairly reasonable thing to slot in. You could also try the Stormcrasher, which has got natural evasion because it's got flying, as well as an ultimate ability later on in the game to just give you a power sink later on, because then if you do flood at some point, you're able to pay the 6 power just to give this Stormcrasher +2/+2. And of course, with it being a flying unit, it's a really good unit to just stick weapons on just to keep getting in damage. And the final card is something with a similar effect, but this you probably don't want to play this in multiples, just maybe like 1 or 2. And Ice Sprite. When you summon this, it's going to stun an enemy unit, and that unit will stay stunned for as long as you have Ice Sprite in play. But Ice Sprite's stats aren't super aggressive, so I'd probably lean on the other two if you're not able to pick up the campaign. Okay, so the rares we've got in this deck are really powerful ones. So we've got to start off with, we've got the Champion of Fury. This gets +1 power and charge if you've got 2 fire influence in play, and if you've got 2 primal influence in play, it'll get +1 and overwhelm. So a lot of the time you can be playing this perhaps like turn 2 or 3 as a 4/2 with charge and overwhelm, and that's a lot of damage out of nowhere. And the games where you're able to draw multiples of this are usually very easy to win. The other row selected is the Shogun Scepter, and this is sort of like a 2-for-1 against the opponent, as well as just really being able to keep developing your board, and not only are you going tall by making one unit bigger, but you're going wide as well by generating another unit. And the Shogun Scepter goes really well on Aegis units, so you can put it on the Thunderbird, and that's going to be a little bit more difficult for your opponent to deal with, and you can also curve it quite nicely after the Snowcrust Yeti. And then you've got a 4/2 Aegis unit, and if your opponent isn't in the business of blockers, or you're just able to keep removing with all the Permafrost and Torches, you're going to really be able to rack up those Warcries. Now this deck does need a lot of 1-drop units as well, so we've got the Grinding Drone and the Oniron, and those are sort of like some of the staples, but the other 1-drops we've got here, I've selected Tick and Grinding just as it's a common, so it's easy to craft. And it's also puts your opponent in quite a lot of pressure because at some point of the game where it is just going to get that free damage in, whether they like it or not. But the three of us, so we've got Ruthless Stranger, which works really well in multiples because it gives each other stranger, well, and itself, gives strangers in general +1 power. So if you have two of these in play, they're both going to be free ones, although because we don't have much in the way of card selection, that is going to be quite rare. But it's just a 2 power 1-drop that's going to be fitting really well into your deck. The next one, and the one that I typically play, is a Pyro Knight, but this is a rare, so we'll look at this in the upgraded list. So the overall strategy of this deck is to beat down the opponent with a ragtag band of units, and we've also got a bunch of sort of weapons in here just to make our threats a lot more threatening. Because we do have a bunch of evasion or even implied evasion like the Quick Draw from Rakano Outlaw, the Onyx Katana can do some real work because it's going to make the Rakano Outlaw really difficult to block, as well as if the Champion of Fury or the Syndicate you've got Overwhelm, it just gets to push that a little bit more damage in if your opponent is in like Chunk Block City. As well as the weapons just working really well on cards like Thunderbird because that's got flying. I've also gone for the Morningstar as our top end of our deck, just as a way to give one of our units +3/+3 and Overwhelm. So this is going to work well on a lot of our units, and specifically cards like the Rakano Outlaw, although you could change this card for Martyr just as another way to burn your opponent out. And Martyr always feels a little bit inefficient, just paying 4 power for 4 damage, but it is quite a powerful play, because if on your opponent's turn you're just able to foil them in the face, and then go to your turn, just like attack them with your units and like finish them off with a torch, it can win your games out of nowhere. I do, for the purpose of this style of deck, prefer the Morningstar just because I feel like this is probably going to get you in a lot more damage than just the 4, as well as it just being another target for Warcries. And we do have a good amount of Warcry in the deck because we do have the Shogun Scepter, the Oni Ronin, and the Rakano Outlaw. There's also some really great targets for the Warcries, and if you ever get to get a couple of Warcries on the Champion of Fury, this is a charge unit, and you get to get value off those Warcries straight away. Okay, so this deck looks pretty good, and it'll get you certainly out of bronze in no time. But let's take a look at the upgraded version. Okay, so here we've upgraded the list a little bit. We've included the Pyro Knight that we were talking about previously, and this is going to give you what's called a power sink. So if you do flood out later in the game, you can pay 6 to give the Pyro Knight +4/+4. That will be a permanent buff, and it works really nicely on a unit with Overwhelm. So you get to have a 6/5, and that's able to attack into a lot of opposing units, and it should be able to get some damage through. So even if your opponent blocks, like just to prevent damage with a 3/3, you're still going to get free damage over, and your Pyro Knight is going to survive that attack. So it just gives you a lot more late game, when for the most part you just want to be capitalizing on the early game and sort of getting the job done. We've also included the Sensari Brigand, and Sensari Brigand holds weapons really well because she has not double damage, but like a different way of wording it. So if you were able to give this double damage somehow, it'd be dealing quadruple damage, but this is just like another high roll sort of unit in the deck, and this works really well with Warcry, as it's effectively a 4/2 charge, and against control decks that you're going to perhaps to start seeing now you're playing in the silver and gold ranks, this is going to be able to sort of finish them off in no time. The Sensari Brigand isn't like a necessarily required craft, and you could just keep in other units, could play Clan Hero here, but this is something that I like to play with personally. So those are the general upgrades, and here you see I'm back on Mortar rather than the Morningstar, although I think, cute transition, I think that Morningstar might actually be better in this deck than Mortar, just because we do have a bunch of ways of making it good, and if you're able to give the Morningstar to the Sensari Brigand, that's a 10/5 out of nowhere. Although it's not actually a 10/5. The Overwhelm means that the damage that flips over should be doubled there. So sadly there's not too much to actually say about Skycrag. It's just a really good efficient deck. There's a lot of pieces that you can add to it to sort of mess around. You can sort of go with more of a Yeti's theme if you really want to, or you could just go down this more narrow and focused sort of beatdown path. Okay, so let's look at the complete list. Okay, so here you can see this is the completed Skycrag list, and the main inclusion here is the legendary card Vadius Clanfather. And if you really want to play Skycrag, this is perhaps one of the best cards that you're going to be playing with, as Vadius is really difficult to deal with when you're able to pack it alongside a load of weapons and ways of getting in there, because the quick draw and the Aegis means that it's really difficult to interact with both outside of combat with spells and in combat with units. It's also got another late game power sink in that if you pay 7 you get to play a Steelfang Chakram on Vadius, and Steelfang Chakram is a really good card because that is a 4-cost weapon that's going to give a unit +4/+0, and if the unit wearing it would die for whatever reason, you get to draw that again. You just get to keep this threat in hand. That means that pretty much anything that you draw is going to be a live threat for the rest of the game. Vadius is a little bit worse when you're trying to be defensive, but this deck just isn't defensive whatsoever. But this is a super powerful deck, and for sure this is one that's going to be able to get you to Masters in no time really. So it's got a really proactive game plan where you're just going to be beating your opponent down, and you're actually reasonably good against Hailstorm because you've got cards like, if your curve is like Snowcrust Yeti into a charge Champion of Fury into a Vadis the Clampfather, and your opponent has played a Hailstorm, then you still get to keep the Snowcrust Yeti and the Vadis Clampfather, so your opponent's taking 5 again after, I mean, they've already taken 6 because of the Snowcrust Yeti and the Champion of Fury just getting in there. So you feel a lot more resilient. This deck's gone a little bit deep and is playing Mortar alongside Morningstar as just more ways of being able to just go over the top and be able to get in there and burn your opponent out. Power base is also really simple as well. Like, you don't really want Crest in this deck. You really prefer just to have undepleted power, which is why I was playing the full set of the Diplo Seals. We've got the Skycrag banners, which should pretty much always be turned on. And the Seat of Fury, which with the 13 other sigils in the deck should be able to be undepleted quite a lot of the time. Okay, so thanks for watching. I've been that Resolves, and this was the new player guide for the Skycrag beginner deck. Hope you enjoy it. See you around.